the Worshipful, the Mayor and Mayoress, Bishop of Peterborough, Reverend Sirs, Members of Parliament, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The story is told of a British Airways flight from Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv to London Heathrow. As the plane was flying over the channel, the pilot came over and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to tell you that the whole of London is covered by a blanket of fog. As a result, we will need to divert to Manchester International Airport." Immediately after that announcement, an air hostess noticed a pious Jewish man dipping his hand deeply into his overnight bag. He retrieved from there a small black book. He opened it to one of its pages. He started to sway backwards and forwards in fervent prayer, and the hostess thought to herself, "This man thinks his prayers are going to lift the fog. He must be crazy." 15 minutes later, the pilot came over again and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I've got good news for you. The fog has lifted." So the hostess went over to the Jewish man and she said, "I owe you an apology." And she said, "Whatever for?" And she said, "Well, you know, your prayers." He said, No, they didn't do anything." She said, "Please, no modesty here. Your prayers did the trick." He said, "No, they didn't." She said, "But I saw it with my own two eyes." He said, "No, you've got it all wrong." So she said to him, "What do you mean?" "Well, it's easy to explain," he said. "You see, those prayers of mine, they were not prayers of supplication. They were prayers of thanksgiving. You see," he said, "I live in Manchester." At this very special occasion, the 125th anniversary of the founding of the Jewish community in Northampton, we offer two prayers to the Almighty. First of all, a prayer of thanksgiving. We express our gratitude to God for the way in which He has blessed this congregation and its members over many years. And we also offer a prayer of supplication to the Almighty that He should bless this congregation, all its present and future members, together with all the citizens of the town of Northampton. In the ethics of the fathers, we are taught al shlosha dvarim ha'olam omed. The world stands upon three things: al haTorah, our Torah tradition, va'al avodah, and upon service to mankind, ve'al gemilut chasadim, and upon acts of good deeds. And I believe that these are the three pillars upon which Northampton Jewry, this great congregation, has stood throughout its existence. First of all, Torah, our Torah tradition, our Torah values. The Talmud tells the story of a man who was walking on his way to a destination he hadn't frequented before. And he came to a crossroads, and he was out by himself in the middle of nowhere, and alas, the wind had blown down the signpost in the middle of the crossroads. And he could not work out whether to go right or left or straight, and he sat down on the ground to bemoan his fate, and then a thought crossed his mind. Actually, he knew what one of the signs on the post represented, because there were signs in all four directions, and he knew where he was coming from. He was aware of his point of origin, and so he replaced the signpost back in the ground with the appropriate sign indicating to the place from which he had come, and as a result he could work out where he was going to. And our sages in the Talmud tell us from this story that we can learn a very important lesson for life, and that is, you will only know where you are going to if you know where you are coming from. That has been right at the essence of our Jewish psyche throughout the ages. Rooted in our past, we have a direction for the sake of a glorious future. And that indeed has been the tradition of this congregation. Looking back to the giving of our Torah at Mount Sinai, to the example set by great biblical characters and others through the ages. The first Jews arrived in Northampton in the 12th century, and a community was established here in 1159. Some of the most outstanding Jewish scholars in Europe, and that is in the world at the time, were here in this town. And their names are mentioned in the notes that they wrote on the Talmud and other great Jewish works. A synagogue was built here. A cemetery was opened. We have the only Jewish tombstone extant in England today here in Northampton. But alas, in 1290, the expulsion of the Jews from this country took place, and this Jewish community was no more. Under Cromwell, the Jews returned to England, and Jewish people, slowly but surely, came back to Northampton. Some notable figures giving a contribution of immense value to this town and the whole area. And eventually, towards the end of the 19th century, there were sufficient numbers to start a community afresh and anew. The Northampton Hebrew congregation was founded in 1888. The first synagogue was consecrated in 1890 on this site by Chief Rabbi Adler. And then in 1964, this new synagogue was built on the same site. In 1988, Chief Rabbi Lord Jacobowitz officiated at the centenary celebrations, and I know some of you here had the pleasure and honor of being present then, and today it is my enormous privilege to officiate at the 125th anniversary celebrations. Throughout all these years, in medieval times and in modern times, the traditions of this synagogue have been rooted upon and based on the finest principles of our faith, our Torah law, and through it, the members of the Jewish community have given an enormous contribution to the local community, always reflecting the highest values of their faith and their tradition. The second pillar upon which the world stands, as is reflected through the history of this congregation, is avodah, service. The service that is given by key individuals to those around them. And today, I am simply moved by the enormity of the contribution given by significant men and women throughout the history of this congregation to guarantee that the community will continue to exist, that its doors will be open, and that services would continue to take place. And in particular, in recent years, one person stands up above all others, and that is John Josephs, president of the congregation, a man who has led services and who selflessly has ensured that Jewish life will continue to thrive in this town. And then John Mitchell has come often in order to lead services. The Reverend Malcolm Wiseman, here with us today as our Minister for Small Communities, has taken a deep interest in Northampton and visits regularly and is much loved and appreciated whenever he comes, as is the case wherever he goes throughout the length and breadth of this country. Together with some significant other individuals who maintain the services and keep this community going, your contribution to this community, to this town and to Anglo Jewry is significant. And then there is a third pillar, Gemilut Chasadim, acts of loving kindness, acts of charity, acts of selflessness. And this indeed has been a hallmark of this community throughout its existence. This week in synagogue we will read the portion from the book of Genesis which describes how our patriarch Abraham had a large tent, and there were 4 entrances to his tent, one on every one of the 4 sides, in order to ensure that regardless of the angle, the side from which a visitor would approach, that person would be able to be greeted, to be brought inside. And Abraham set the prime example of hospitality, the importance of bringing people into one's home, showering them with love and affection. And this is exactly what has happened within this community. During the First World War, quite a number of the men of the Northampton Hebrew congregation gave up their lives in battle in the name of king and country. And during the Second World War, there were many refugees who came to Northampton from Europe, fleeing for their lives from the dangers that beset them there. And like with Abraham, our patriarch, and the tent that he established, this community opened its doors to one and all, giving them a safe haven and a new home. The Ladies' Guild of this community over many years selflessly providing meals and other facilities for people, and anybody who's ever come this way for a service that is taking place on a Sabbath or festivals has always been warmly received with open arms. This is a community which rightfully has prided itself upon the warmth and generosity that it has given to others. And in this respect, the community as well has had a very meaningful and constructive relationship with other faiths. And I understand that the Northampton Interfaith Forum is an outstanding organization, and this congregation takes a leading role in its deliberations in order to guarantee that members of different faiths can function together and thrive together. And indeed, Northampton is an outstanding example for other towns and cities in the country to follow. The first chief rabbi of the Holy Land, Rabbi Cook, spoke about the importance of unity as opposed to uniformity. Sometimes people are mistaken when it comes to these two concepts. They think that actually uniformity is unity, and therefore they presume that for people to get on well together and to establish peace, everybody should look the same and do the same and believe the same, but that's not unity. Explained Rabbi Cook, the best way to describe unity is through the model that is represented by a symphony orchestra. Each instrument makes its own independent sound, different from the others, but under the baton of the conductor, all blend together with beautiful harmony to create wonderful music. And so too within society. We need to respect differences, to cherish what we have, and at the same time to allow the space and opportunity for others to exist and to thrive. And under the baton of cooperation, together we can present everything that is necessary for a harmonious society. This is what is taking place in Northampton today, and indeed in the very place where Jews in medieval times suffered because of their faith. Today, members of different faiths come together in a spirit of collegiality and harmony, and the result is an example for the entire nation to follow. I therefore would like to extend my hearty congratulations to the members of this wonderful community for everything that you have achieved, and please God, that which you will achieve in the future. This is a significant anniversary. Congratulations to those who have organized this wonderful event. It is a time for us to give thanks to the Lord for the manner in which He has blessed us, and to engage in prayers of supplication that He will bless us here in Northampton and throughout the length and breadth of this country, with peace, with harmony, with prosperity, and with success. With a full heart we say, blessed are you, our Lord, our God, King of the universe, who has enabled us to live, to witness this day. Baruch atah, shehecheyanu, v'kiyamanu, v'higiyanu, lazman hazeh.